Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into another beer from P Friem, and today's beer is called Pruim, which is the Dutch word for plum, and indeed this is a plum sour ale. 6.3% ABV on this one. P Friem is based in Hood River, Oregon. So P Friem, we've had tons of luck with this brewer and got this from Tavour, as I typically do. We got another sour here with a nice cage on top. So we will firstly, before we get that fully off, just take a look. There's not much to say. As expected, you can probably already see it in the camera, but label art, just their nice, clean design. So we're just going to take off the cage, move the glass off to the side there, just in case, and give a good grip. Oh yeah, wow. That really does smell plummy. Sour, plummy. Bits of slight subtle suggestions of that classic Brett tutti frutti kind of aroma, but it smells really, really great. Gonna get this one poured right in. Oh wow, that's a beautiful color on this beer. Yeah, obviously with the plums in there, that's gonna impart a ton of not just flavor, but also color here. It's very, very effervescent. That much is also clear, but it's got this really bright kind of pinkish purplish hue to it. It is absolutely stunning. Little undercurrents of orange just because it's in a malt base, which is yellow, but yeah. Oh yeah, that's stunning. It's a very loud beer. It's very active in terms of carbonation, and you can really hear it. That is impressive. That's impressive. Stunning beer. Yeah, just a nice kind of purplish pink, subtle undercurrents of orange, you know, just due to the nature of it being in malt. Very, very active in terms of carbonation. That head, let's get right up on it while it's actively doing its thing. Yeah, it smells fantastic. There's a little bit of an underlying funk to it. You can definitely get the sour and the tart and really strong notes of plum coming right off of this. It smells absolutely fantastic. It really exactly as expected, and there it goes. So that active carbonation already collapsed that head that did form. So if you were to look for this beer or check it into Untapped, you'll notice that they categorize it as a lambic. This is not a lambic. It's been a while, but I'll mention it again. And indeed, P Friem even says on the back, it's a lambic-inspired ale. Why is it lambic-inspired and not a lambic? Well, lambics only come from one region in Belgium. This being brewed in Hood River, Oregon, by definition, it is not a lambic. Lambics are to the world of beer what champagne is to the world of sparkling wine. Only sparkling wine from one region in France is champagne. Everything else is sparkling wine. The same is true of lambics and Belgium. So it is a lambic-inspired sour ale, which is a proper categorization. So looks absolutely lovely. It smells fantastic. Let's just jump right in and see what P Friem's got for us today. Ooh, that is bold flavor. Wow. Plum really just punches at you. There's a big kick of sour, a big kick of tart, and it kind of lingers up for a pretty good bit, that intensity, before it slowly pulls back. And it's almost equal parts sour and tart. And really, really nice. There's a pretty decent kick of funk up front. There's no underlying tutti frutti flavors, which you can often get with Brett beers. That's really regulated just to the aroma on this. But there is a little bit of funk. Nothing on here that's super intense, nothing that's off-putting, but it tastes right for the beer style. I gotta say, the plum is just absolutely delicious on this. It is bold. It is leading strongly with plum. The underpinnings of the malt bill are also discernible. There's this slight, yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of like that if you had crust, like nice crusty bread, like an artisan loaf of sourdough, and you had like a piece that you set on the end for a couple of days. It's got that nice kind of crusty, that bread-like quality. It's got a distinct grain quality, and it really counterbalances the big intensity of that plum and that kind of sharpness and acidity from the sour and the tart in the beer. It's really, really nice. And of course, you know, the underlying subtle funkness is doing its thing and taking it in a completely different direction. But it's really, really nice. I mean, for what they did with this beer, the balance on this is spectacular. And really, in a beer like this, it's additives, it's the various yeast strain, whatever wild yeast, and obviously a lot of that is luck. And then, of course, the underlying characteristics of the malt bill and what they chose to put in there. The other thing I can say, texturally for mouthfeel, this is, of course, a sour beer. And yes, there is a reasonably noticeable amount of drying. This one, it kind of hits you, especially if you're vigorously agitating on the palate to really open it up, get all the flavors. You'll feel the dryness up front, but then that almost immediately gets out of the way when the flavor comes to the forefront. And then it's really from about 45 seconds onward, after the end of each sip, when the finish is on its decay, that's when the real kind of crispness, dryness hits the palate. For me, it's hitting right on the tip of the tongue. It's reasonably pronounced. You can feel it. It's very, very nice. I got to say, delicious, absolutely fantastic aroma. The flavor profile really closely matches what you get on the aroma, so you have a really good idea of what to expect. If anything, it's just even bigger and bolder. No tutti frutti from the Brett in terms of flavors, but the plum is even bigger in your face, and the sour and the tart's even bigger in your face. It's really, really a well done, very delicious beer. So we're going to take two, let everything re-intensify, talk about the body and the mouthfeel, then we'll talk about specifically anything else I missed and delve into a little bit more on this finish side, aside from just the dryness, but very tasty beer. You know, it's 6.3%. It's got a big, full, medium body to it. It's not a heavy beer, but it's a big, round, full medium. It feels like it's got some presence to it, and it should for 6.3. In terms of the mouthfeel, aside from the dryness we already talked about, there is a ton of active carbonation on the palate. You can feel it the whole time it's in your mouth. It's got a reasonable amount of resistance for a sour, but again, it's got a higher ABV than a typical sour. I mean, whatever a typical sour is, let's just call it a standard run-of-the-mill, a farmhouse, a saison, just some generic sour. This is a little bit higher ABV than you would see as the average if you were to take all sours. And yeah, it feels right. It's got the right body, it's got the right mouthfeel. It feels like it's a little higher ABV beer. So texturally and breadth-wise, it feels exactly right to me. On second sip re-intensification, I'm not picking out anything new. It just re-intensified what I got on the first sip and let me just delve into and see just how truly delicious this is again. I really like how the sour and the tart is relatively up front on this, and it gives a nice kick to these plums. It almost gives this candy-like quality to it, which is very, very nice. So you get these tart, intense plum notes just coming right out of this beer. Again, that subtle funk, it's not over the top, but it's enough to let you know, yep, you're drinking a nice sour beer. In terms of the finish, aside from just texturally, mouthfeel-wise, and the dryness where it happens, this one's longer than your average sour, but it's not over the top. I would say it's probably high end of average, maybe approaching a little bit on the low end of above average, but it's not over the top. It's maybe not as long as you would expect considering the pungency of the ingredients. I expect if this were barrel aged with some kind of spirit in the back that they threw it in, or even a really long time in a big flavor forward barrel like white oak, for instance, it might have a bit longer punch on the finish. But in this one, yeah, it's just high end of average, maybe slightly above average, but it's not over the top. But it's very, very nice. This is a well put together beer. Absolutely refreshing, completely delicious, packed full of big, big plum flavor. I love it. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, call it my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was P Friem's Pruim. This was a sour ale clocking in at 6.3% ABV. This one was brewed with plums, Pruim, the Dutch word for plum. P Friem is based in Hood River, Oregon. So, as with the vast majority of P Friem's beers I've tried to date, this is just another absolutely top-tier beer. You know, kind of the verdict is running around. This is the kind of craft beer connoisseurs, the craft beer lovers, craft brewery. I gotta say, there's a lot of great craft brewers out there. I may have my own personal preferences, but I absolutely see what people are talking about. They just have an exceptional quality in all of the beers that they produce. This was no exception. Indeed, this was another one of those beers that came very, very close to a perfect score. Only one category on this one that did not get a perfect 10 out of 10, so we're just going to jump straight to that. That category was the finish. So the finish on a sour ale is, you know, it kind of can be all over the board. It's not a beer style in general, although there's a lot of different substyles of sours, but sours in general don't tend to have extremely long finishes. This was one of those that I expected to last longer than it did, just based on the overall pungency of flavor, certainly, and also the underlying sour underneath the beer and the Brettanomyces characteristics. It was quite bold, quite pungent. I did expect it to actually last quite a bit longer than it did. That being said, this was on the high end of average for certainly the beer style and ABV range, and I did give it a 6 out of 10, which does leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the 9 remaining categories of aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling, and intangible, my subjective thoughts category, and example of style. So that brings the total score on P Friem's Pruim to a 96 out of 100. Absolutely top tier, guys. If you're a fan of sours, I mean, this is one of the truly, truly great ones. Absolutely delicious. I'm not sure I've ever had a sour that featured just plums, and this one was done extremely well, as I have come to know and expect from P Friem. That's why I keep grabbing their beers. I did indeed get this one from Tavour, so keep your eyes out if this one pops up again. If you're a sour fan, absolutely worth your time. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.